Welcome to our channel. Here we read Bible stories written for children and adults alike. Our verse today is Genesis 50:20. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. The evil in this verse is the brothers. They had been jealous of Joseph, desiring even to kill him. Therefore, in order to get rid of him, they sold him as a slave to some Ishmaelite traders. The good is God. He knows all things, and he knew the future, that there would be a famine in the world. Joseph was brought to power through dreams, which predicted the future of the Pharaoh. Joseph told the Pharaoh during the 7 years of plenty to make storage bins to save grain for the years of the predicted famine. Joseph's brothers had come to buy grain from Egypt. They did not recognize their brother as he oversaw the selling of grain. Today's lesson: Joseph tests his brothers to see if they had changed. Our story today is called The Silver Cup. When the meal was over, Joseph called his steward and told him to fill their sacks with wheat, and just as he had done the last time, secretly to put their money back in the bags. This time, though, he had also put in the bag of the youngest, his own silver cup. The next morning, as soon as it was light, the brothers set off on their way home. They were not far from the city when Joseph sent his steward after them. When he caught up with them, he asked them how, after all the kindness that had been shown to them, they could be so ungrateful as to have stolen Joseph's cup. Of course, they denied having stolen anything. They didn't know that was in their bags. They were so sure that they hadn't done any wrong, they even said that if anyone had stolen the cup, he should die for his crime, and they would willingly become the slaves of the Egyptian ruler. And then the cup was found. Oh, how terribly upset they were. In their sorrow, they tore their clothes. Sadly, the little group went back with the steward to face the anger of Joseph. When they reached his home, they threw themselves down on the ground in front of him, but Joseph pretended to be terribly angry. They were so upset they promised all to become his slaves, but Joseph told them to go home to their father, except the one in whose bag the cup had been found. And that one was Benjamin, the favorite of their old father Jacob. Without him, they would not dare to go home. It would break the old man's heart. So they pleaded with Joseph, and Judah begged to be allowed to stay as a slave in Benjamin's place. Then Joseph could not stand it any longer. He sent out all the Egyptians out of the room, and when they had gone, he told his brothers who he was. While he did so, he wept so loudly that the Egyptians and the rest of the house could hear how upset he was. The brothers were terribly afraid. They remembered what they had done to Joseph, but he comforted them and said, "Don't come close to me. Don't be afraid because of what you did long ago. God wanted me to be here, and it is because he helped me and showed me what to do that there is food in Egypt, and that you did not die of starvation. I came here as a slave, but God has made me a great man in the land. God told me that there would be 7 years of famine. 2 years have passed, but there are still 5 years to come. I have still a great deal of work to do. Because there is famine back in our own land, too, you must go back home and fetch our father Jacob and all your families and your flocks and herds. Come to the land of Goshen, the province on the eastern side of Egypt, and I shall see to it that Pharaoh gives you a place to stay. There you can live in peace, and I will see to it that you always have enough to eat." Then he hugged and kissed all his brothers, but especially Benjamin, the youngest. Now when the news of all this was brought to him, Pharaoh was overjoyed, and so were all the nobles in his court. Pharaoh even sent a special message to their brothers. They must take with them all the food they needed, and quickly come back to Egypt with their father and their families and all their animals. They must not worry about the future. All the riches of Egypt would be theirs. How thrilled the brothers must have been to hear that promise. When they turned back homeward, they were loaded with gifts, and they did not have to carry the new clothes and the silver Joseph had given them on the backs of their donkeys either. For Benjamin, there were special gifts: 5 new suits and 300 pieces of silver, and for their father, 10 asses loaded with rich gifts and food of all kinds. By order of Pharaoh, the brothers were given wagons to carry back all their goods. Joseph said a strange thing to those brothers just before they left. See that you don't quarrel with one another on the way. He knew what they were like, you see. When they came to Egypt, they had been afraid. What had Pharaoh's officer done to Simeon while they were away? What would he do to them now? But how different it was when they went back home. Gladness made them hurry so that they could tell their father the wonderful news as quickly as possible. But when they told him, he wouldn't believe them. Let's repeat our verse. Genesis 50:20. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. I'm going to ask a few questions now. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it, and then I'll reveal the answer. Let me know in the comments how many you get right. All right, number 1. What did Joseph's steward put in the wheat sack? He put a silver cup in the sack. What did the brothers agree to do if they were guilty of being thieves? The brother guilty of stealing would die. Why was Joseph not angry with his brothers for what they had done to him? He was able to forgive, and he realized there was a purpose in it all. What did Joseph tell his brothers to do to escape the famine? He told them to come and live with him. God knows all things, which means God knows the future. God provides our needs. We see the blessing Joseph had because he did not hold a grudge, but God blessed him because he was willing to forgive. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." Let's repeat our verse one final time. Genesis 50:20. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Thank you for joining us on our Bible reading journey. I hope you can join us next time as we continue our story called From Poverty to Plenty.